out of town. I will be attempting to lead our songs this morning. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in number 300 in the Gray Hymnal, With Heart and Mind. So pronunciation is on the bottom left side. Let's go through that real quick. Repeating after me, tu la clizio, nala pasekaya, e kaya, nala pasekaya. Awesome. So it goes like this. Tu la clizio, nala pasekaya. Ekaya nala pasekaya. Y'all got it. It's great. If you want a la la la, that's an option. The translation, be still my heart, even here I am at home. Let's give it a shot. We'll repeat it through a few times, so by the end of it, you'll get the hang of it.
May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us.
For this International Day of Transgender Visibility celebration, we have opening words from Penny Hackett Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. All manner of people are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together. Together, we have truths. Together, we have a story. Together, we are a community. Come, let us worship.
such a good name.
Either way, we're okay with it.
Okay. This is the story of Bailey. We have a lot of kids, don't we? Would the children like to come and be a little closer to the puppets, these beautiful puppets that Huxley made for the story? There's room in the first row here if y'all want to come down. Or children at heart. I'll take anybody. Thank you. There we go. Awesome. So, this is Bailey. Hi, Bailey. Every night, Bailey dreamed about dresses. A long staircase led to a red Valentine castle. On each stair was a brand new dress, just waiting to be tried on. 10,000 dresses in all, and each one different. The first dress was made of crystals. When Bailey slipped the dress on, the crystals clinked against each other like millions of tiny bells. And when sunlight hit the dress just right, rainbows jumped out. With all her heart, Bailey loved the dress made of crystals that flashed rainbows in the sun. When Bailey woke up, she went to find Mother. "Mom, I dreamt about a dress," said Bailey. "Uh-huh," said her mother. "A dress made of crystals that flash rainbows in the sun." "Uh-huh. And I was wondering if you would buy me a dress like that." "Bailey, what are you talking about? You are a boy. Boys don't wear dresses." "But I don't feel like a boy," Bailey said. "Well, you are one, Bailey, and that's that. Now go away and don't mention dresses again." Bailey went to her room. Now she would never have a dress made of crystals that flashed rainbows in the sun. That night, Bailey walked right past the crystal dress and went to the second stair. There was a dress made of lilies and roses, and when she slipped it on, she saw that the sleeves were made of honeysuckle. New microphone, sorry. Bailey picked a few of the blossoms to taste the drops of honey. With all her heart, Bailey loved the dress made of lilies and roses with honeysuckle sleeves. Bailey woke up and went to find Father. He was in the backyard pulling up weeds. Dad, I dreamt about a dress," Bailey said. "Uh-huh," said her father. "A dress made of lilies and roses with honeysuckle sleeves." "Uh-huh. And I was wondering, could you grow me a dress like that?" "Bailey, what are you talking about?" said her dad. "You're a boy. Boys don't wear dresses." "But I don't feel like a boy," she said. "Well, you are one, Bailey, and that's that. Now go away and don't mention dresses again." Bailey went to her room. Now she would never have a dress made of lilies and roses with honeysuckle sleeves. That night, Bailey walked right past the crystal dress and the dress made of lilies and roses and went to the third stair. There was a dress made of windows. One window showed the Great Wall of China, another the pyramids. With all her heart, Bailey loved the dress made of windows, which showed the Great Wall of China and the pyramids. Bailey woke up and went to find her brother. "I dreamt about a dress," she told him, "a dress made of windows, which showed the Great Wall of China and the pyramids." "You dream about dresses, Bailey? That's gross. You're a boy." "But," Bailey said, "but nothing. Get out of here before I kick you." Oh, it's not a very nice brother, huh? Bailey ran and ran. She ran all the way to the end of the block until she came to a house with a big blue porch. An older girl was sitting there with needles and thread and old sheets. "What are you doing?" Bailey asked. "Making dresses," said the big girl, "but it's really hard. Mine all come out looking the same." "Maybe I can help," said Bailey. Bailey told Laurel, the big girl, about the dress made of windows, which showed the Great Wall of China and the pyramids. "That's awesome," said Laurel, "but how do we make a dress out of windows?" We'll use old mirrors, said Bailey. Together, the girls made 2 new dresses, which were covered with mirrors of all shapes and sizes. These dresses don't show us the Great Wall of China or the pyramids, said Laurel. No, said Bailey, but they do show us ourselves. You're the coolest girl I've ever met, Bailey, said Laurel. Hey, do you think you can dream up any more dresses? Bailey grinned. I think I can dream up 10,000. Thank you.
Testing? Okay. We'd like to invite you all to turn to the back of the gray hymnal to sing the children off to their RE classes. May your mind, may your lips bring truth unto the world. May your heart know love to the world as you go your way. As you go your way in peace.
Too long.
Good morning. My name is River Plummer. I am a member of this church's youth group, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here in the sanctuary and those joining us online to worship this morning. In order to reach a wider community than those able to be physically present on Sunday morning, our services are live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Joys and concerns are not live streamed or recorded. Before I continue, let me remind you to silence your cell phones. As Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary, but in this congregation, we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We deepen our relationships as we create a compassionate, welcoming community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors worshiping with us this morning. We ask that you wear the paper name tags because it helps us recognize you as someone we'd like to meet. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you may find it here. Whether you are new to Unitarian Universalism or visiting from another UU congregation, we invite you to stop by the welcome table after the service to have questions answered. People become members of this congregation by signing the membership book and supporting the church with their time and finances. If you are considering joining the church, please talk to our assistant minister, Denise Gyauch. Following the service, we hope everyone will enjoy coffee and fellowship in the social area, where you will also find information about current opportunities for engagement and reflection. There are a number of announcements in the weekly bulletin, which I hope you will take home and read. Here are a few more. Today, 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. in the Fireside Room, the Social Justice Committee is hosting a conversation about renewing our Welcoming Congregation certification. We will be discussing the new process and how we can engage in the process of welcome renewal. We will provide space for listening to help us identify areas we need to grow to truly become a welcoming community. Our Passover Seder is April 19th, 5:45 p.m. The Seder is an ancient Jewish tradition that recounts the Israelites' flight from bondage in Egypt and celebrates freedom. Both a service and a shared meal, it includes music, interactive reading, prayer, and a fun activity for kids. Reservations and payment are accepted online or after services in the social hall starting today. And then one more. If you're looking for some post-church activity this morning, Valerie Martin will be teaching a yoga class at Inner Light Yoga in the 12 South neighborhood at 11:30. Today's class is donation-based, supporting the Tennessee Equality Project in honor of the International Transgender Day of Visibility. Valerie also promises an awesome playlist affirming the inherent worth of folks all across the gender spectrum. Drop in or reserve your spot at Inner Light's website. Thank you.
I'm going to add one more announcement. This week starts our worship workshop for any of you that are curious about how Unitarian Universalists put together worship. Whether you want to be involved in worship or not, anyone who wants to be a worship associate, though, it is a requirement for them to take this class. It's Wednesday nights, it's 7 o'clock, a couple of Wednesdays this month and a couple Wednesdays next month. You're all invited. And at this time, I'd like to invite you all to take a deep breath. Bring yourself more fully present to this sacred space, to this gathered community, and to yourself. And as you become more fully present to yourself, you may become more aware of those moments from the last days or weeks or hours that you bring here with you, especially those moments that have struck your spirit at the heart. If any of you have such a profound joy, concern, or sorrow that you'd like to make present to this gathered community, invite to do so. Our volunteer clergy this morning, Reverend Kathy, will help you place a stone in this water that symbolizes our gathered community. You might want to do that in silence, but if you would like Kathy or me to read of that joy or concern, there's little yellow slips of paper in the pew for you to write it out and hand it to me when you place your stone. Thank you. I'd like to invite you to hold these concerns and sorrow in your heart as well, all of those that lie there unspoken in your lips, in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, may we feel your unconditional love, the unconditional love that each of us helps create into the largest spirit as we challenge the prevailing ideas of sin in this culture and in many religions, and as we listen to that message of unconditional love in our hearts based on our relationships with one another. We challenge together the sin of exploitation, and we hold up the mutuality amongst people that comes from this love. We challenge the sin of putting people who have different gender identities and sexualities in the closet. And we call upon the love that we feel, for all of us to come out of those closets. We challenge together, because we cannot do this alone, the sin of apathy. And we offer one another the grace of activism. Together, we challenge the sin of conformity on the outside, trying to look the same or looking like some societal norm. And we invite in a place of what some would call deviance. And what all of us understand is that glorious individuality that we can see out in the gorgeousness of the spring fields. We challenge the sin of shame and support one another in that love that brings us pride in ourselves and each other. We support one another in challenging the sin of isolation and celebrate together with love our interdependence. And help us, Spirit of Life and Love, to challenge the sin of singularity, of there only being one way, and hold one another in celebrating the grace of endless hybridity, variation, fluidity. Spirit of life and love, may we help one another hold, act on, exhibit that love in so many ways, transformative ways, not only to ourselves, but to all. Blessed be, and amen. Now, at this time, I get to invite Jessica Moore-Lewis in a second to come forward and do a stewardship testimony. And but before that, I just want to tell you that when she's done, we will be doing our offering, passing the offering plate. And when we pass the offering plate, we give 1/2 of our the cash that you put in to a shared mission. And all this month, at the request of our middle school students, we've been given to GLSEN, which is gay, lesbian, it's called, GLSEN stands for Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, but they work for all GLBTQ people in the public schools where we know it's so effectively needed. And so I want to thank you for your ongoing generosity. This is the last week that we're giving to them, so this is your last chance to donate. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Jessica. Thank you, Jessica.
All right, I made it up in these glasses. I've hit the stage of middle age where I have different glasses for different activities, so I can't actually climb stairs in these glasses. I'm Jessica Moore-Lucas, and I'm a member of this congregation and one of the co-chairs of the Social Justice Committee. I've been asked to share a stewardship moment with you as our campaign to raise money for next year's goals is coming to an end today. And I have to say, the best part about being co-chair of the Social Justice Committee, other than the awesome people on the committee, is that we get to give money away in the church's name. I love the work we do through our action teams, which are funded through Share the Plate, and the work we do through the 6 months of the year, like this month, when the Share the Plate recipients are groups in our community that the committee selects, often at the recommendation of members of the congregation. I love a good debate, so considering applications with the rest of the committee is so much fun. It's super fun to let recipients know that we've selected them, and meeting the representatives who come and give testimonials helps us make connections with groups in the community who are living our values out there in the world, even if they've never heard of the 7 principles till they came to give their testimonial here. And of course, my favorite, absolute favorite is sending an email that says, "This is how much we raised. Can I verify the address we need to send the check to?" It's an amazing reminder of the generous spirit of this congregation. I love our commitment to justice in the greater Nashville community, but justice starts at home. Some of that is in the work of groups like the Trans Affirming Collective, the Beloved Community Committee, and the Welcome Renewal process in helping us grow to offer an ever more inclusive and radical welcome to everyone who comes to our community looking for a home. By the way, if you're curious about the Welcoming Renewal process, come to our 12:30 listening session. There'll be pizza. Thanks to the work of the Trans Affirming Collective, I've come to a deeper understanding of what it means to be inclusive and welcoming to our trans and non-binary siblings. Feeling my way through my biases as a participant in the Nashville Pledge program was painful, but necessary toward building our community, and has helped me in doing justice work outside our walls. Both of these have helped me learn to do my own emotional labor as an accomplice to people with less privilege than I have. There's another part of justice at home that isn't quite as exciting as all this personal growth. This justice at home is what stewardship's about. It's making sure our facility is safe, accessible, and inviting. Justice at home means paying our staff fair wages determined both by the cost of living and their awesomeness. And it is having adequate staff to serve our community without burning out our existing staff or our volunteers. Justice at home means fully funding all areas of our shared ministry. This is why I give. And I hope maybe I have reminded you of the things you value about our church and our community, and that you will strongly consider making a pledge for the first time, or maybe even increasing your pledge. Our collective generosity with our time and our finances is what makes our shared ministry possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. A couple of months ago, when I started meeting with the Trans Affirming Collective to plan this service in celebration and affirmation of the beauty of transgender lives, somebody brought us this book. It's actually a twofer. There's two sides, two people. It's a parent and a young person writing about a transition and their respective experiences of transition. So we all passed the book around and we got really excited. We thought, oh, this is great. We'll have to make sure people can see this and they know about it. We'll put it on our bibliography. And then we found out that the authors are local. And then we found out that they were going to come to our service. And then we found out that they were willing to participate and offer a reflection. Yes. So I have the great honor of introducing Candace Johnson and Damian Connor, who are going to offer reflection. Before they come up, I want to tell you they will be at the social justice table after the service, and they have more copies of their book, which is it's really, really wonderful. I recommend it highly. So they'll be happy to talk to you up after the service. But Candace and Damian, would you please come?
Good morning. I know there's a lot of things that people say on social media. I'm one of those scary trans guys, you know, that you hear about on the internet. That's me. But, I mean, in reality, we all walk, talk, you know, think the same, have the same worries, problems, issues, fears. In the book, I have a very supportive mom, and she actually showed me. I didn't realize it on my own. She helped me. I've had a very easy transition compared to others, and I'm so thankful for that because it could have been a lot harder. But there's still some things that I go through, and it's very stressful because I still don't know how to deal with it. My little brother, he's gonna be 9 in September. It's still hard to think about, but in the book, he's in my dedication, and I say, Hayden, I love you so much, and I know you don't know me as Damian, but I'm still going to be here for you when you're ready. Every day I think about how to communicate with him because he still lives with my father. And the last time that I saw him was 2 years ago at a basketball game. And he was playing with his friend, and he ran past, and I said, hey, Hayden. And he looked at me. The way he looked at me, I'll never forget it. He looked past me. He saw right through me. He didn't know who I was. And that was so hard to realize. I didn't know what to expect, but I did not expect that. And before I could say anything, he ran off, and that was the last time that I saw him. And every day I think about how I'm going to communicate with him, write letters, I don't know. But I do know that I am going to be ready when he is, because I love him. The only thing that's stopping us right now is my father, but that's okay, because I'll be there for him. But I still go through some stuff. Just because I had an easy transition doesn't mean I still have battles to go through. But I guess my message to you guys is that we have to stay educated. We have to stay educated and give the education to people who have just the slightest open mind. Because if we do that, you know, it'll be easier for the next generation. Thank you.
He let me hug him in public, so we got that on video, right? I see why he made me let him go first. Sorry. There was a few things that I wanted to say, and I wasn't sure where to go with it because there's so many directions we can go. He talked about education and always being open to it. And it kind of fits right in with what I wanted to say, which is love, which is a really big word. And then my brain, which is ADD and a smart ass, sorry, goes, love. And then I got Tony Tennille and Captain and Tennille singing, love will keep us together. And then I got the Love Boat going off this way, and that theme of that show, and a lot of you were too young to know those things, but you could Google them. But anyway, so through all the processes of my brain, thinking those things and those songs going on in my head, I really just wanted to tell you that the thing that made the difference in our family was that, yes, I was all in for my kids, and I wasn't heard when I was a little, and I just remember thinking, well, when I have kids, I'm just going to listen when they want me to. And I did. And I didn't understand. I didn't know what was happening. I knew he hated being a girl, and I just tried to support him the best way I could while just surviving what was our life and the choices that were made that got us there. But the biggest thing I think I need you to know was, especially as moms, we put all of our energy into our kids, our soul, our heart, our life, everything. And our identity can become our children. We get lost in there somewhere. And because Damien was with his dad one week and me one week, I didn't notice that he didn't like to hug that much. Because when he got back to me, he would hug me and love on me the first couple of days. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself hardly, which is pretty common. And he would hug and love on me, and it never occurred to me that he didn't like to hug that much until I got him more often. And then I realized he hugs because he knows I like it, and it makes me happy, and sometimes he likes to be hugged. But in general, I didn't realize when he was younger he didn't like to hug because the situation didn't give us enough time together for me to realize it. But when I did realize it, instead of me going, oh, my baby doesn't show me enough love, oh, what have I done, or kind of thing, or my heart's broken, I just was like, okay, well, his truth was he didn't like it as much as I did. And even though he loves me just as much as I love him, it's just a different way of expressing it. And if I had focused on the fact that he didn't do it like I did, I would have lost and missed everything that we went through. And so I just want to mostly say that even though we all show love in different ways, or maybe not show it in a lot of ways, just be always open to maybe your way isn't always the right way all the time. It doesn't make someone else's way of showing any less valid or any less loving. It's just that be open to being educated yourself even in a love language. Thank you.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join me for hymn number 128 in the gray hymnal, For All That Is Our Life.
morning. My name is Colin Garrett, and my pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I'm a member of this congregation and of the Trans Affirming Collective, which is an action team of the Social Justice Committee that is working to make our congregation affirming of people of all gender identities. I want to start by talking briefly about the most recent issue of UU World, our denomination's quarterly magazine, which is sent to every member of a UU congregation. The spring edition included an article written by a woman who is not trans about trans people. It was not good. If you read it and you feel you learned something, that's okay, but I want you to know that the author and editor rejected input from trans people and included false and harmful information. They missed the mark. If you haven't read the article, this trans person gives you permission to skip it. UU World has issued an apology, which is linked at the top and bottom of the article online, along with links to some of the many wonderful articles that queer and trans people wrote in response, which would be a much better read instead. Now, I don't want to focus too much on this one situation, though, because the truth is there are as many ways to be trans as there are trans people. People have been disregarding gender expectations throughout history and in cultures around the world. People who our US culture today would call trans have been variously revered, shunned, ignored, beaten, or welcomed. We are not new. We are not a fad or up for debate, but our culture is still figuring it out, and to be visibly trans is sometimes scary because we don't know which response we'll get today. So, be aware that your trans friends are the experts on when and whether it is safe for them to be visible. But being trans is not a tragedy. It's a gift to be able to recognize when things don't feel right, to forge your own way through life, to say that you will not be defined by the moment when you were born, when someone else decided which of two boxes you belonged in. In this church, we are working to make sure that every person that walks through our doors knows that they are called to bring their whole selves, without limitations or regards to the boxes others put them in. Now, I'm a white, college-educated, trans-masculine person, and I don't want to minimize the physical dangers that trans women of color in particular face, or the spiritual or emotional damage that being a trans person in this culture can cause. I cannot speak for my siblings who are multiply marginalized in being both trans and disabled, undocumented, incarcerated, low income, and more. I acknowledge the patriarchal, white supremacist, and capitalist surroundings that often make spaces where others do not feel safe being and speaking as well. Growing up in a Lutheran church, I did not hear language affirming who I was. Recently on Facebook, Asher O'Callahan, a trans man and ordained pastor, wrote about the beauty of the trans experience from a Lutheran perspective. And quick note, there's some God language coming up. In the beginning, God created both night and day, but have you ever seen a sunset? Well, trans and non-binary people are kind of like that. Gorgeous. Full of 100 shades of color you can't see in plain daylight or during the night. In the beginning, God created both land and sea, but have you ever seen a beach? Well, trans and non-binary people are kind of like that. Beautiful. A balanced oasis that's not quite like the ocean, nor quite like the land. In the beginning, God created birds of the air and fish of the sea. But have you ever seen a flying fish, or a duck, or a puffin that swims and flies? Well, trans and non-binary people are kind of like that, full of life, a creative combination of characteristics that blows people's minds. Now, we have been trained from birth that we should instantly know the gender of every person around us. And some scientific studies say we do this within 25 seconds of meeting someone new. Many of us feel uncomfortable if we can't make a snap judgment, and we project that discomfort onto the other person. In order to resolve this, many think we have a right to ask very personal questions and believe that the answers will give us some essential insight into them. I invite you to learn to let go of that impulse and instead practice kaleidoscope thinking with respectful curiosity. Alex Capitan is a trans UU religious professional who writes on her blog, "I'll let you in on a secret that's not so secret. Unlearning binary ways of thinking is not easy. It is so much easier to categorize everything and everyone as male or female, white or black, good or bad, than it is to do the hard work of practicing kaleidoscope thinking. It's easier to interact with people from our heads than from our hearts. But I'll tell you something else. It's worth it. Being able to be our full, multicolored, multi-layered selves and affirming the same vibrancy in others is worth it. And that's what's at stake, because practicing kaleidoscope thinking isn't just about seeing the world in color instead of in black and white. It's about understanding that when you layer red on blue, you don't just get red and blue, you get purple. It's about understanding how all these colors interact with each other, creating infinite possibilities of tone and texture and shade. It's not about understanding the boxes better or creating more boxes to put each other in. It's about getting rid of box ways of understanding each other. And I'll let you in on another secret. Unlearning binary thinking and practicing kaleidoscope ways of being is something we do best together. I'm going to say that again because it's that important. This isn't something for us to master in the solitary towers of our own minds. This is something we need to do, to practice together. Ultimately, I believe that this is the purpose of Unitarian Universalist spiritual community, to help each other dismantle the idea that people are good or evil, to practice what it means to affirm the inherent goodness of all of humanity, of all of life, in all that we do. Z later writes, "This is my charge to you. The next time you're tempted to put someone in a box, whether it's straight or female or white or anything else, practice instead being curious about what that person's truth might be instead, about whether they might actually be bisexual or genderqueer or multiracial, for example, or about what being straight or female or white has been like for them and how it might be different from what it's like for you or others. And the next time you're tempted to think of someone as wrong or bad, yourself included, practice instead affirming the inherent goodness at the core of all life." This year, our congregation is embarking on several activities to renew our welcoming congregation status. One of those will be a course called Trans Inclusion in Congregations, created by Alex Capitan and Michael Slack, and led by the Trans Affirming Collective. You're all invited to join us in learning about beloved community, unpacking the gender binary, and creating cultural shift towards radical welcome. We will hold several sessions covering 6 major topics with videos, handouts, and plenty of time for discussion. Watch for announcements in the bulletin and newsletter for when they will be held this fall. I invite you to join the hard, necessary, and rewarding practice of celebrating our differences in beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I invite you for a moment, having heard these reflections, the beautiful gifts we have been given of people speaking of their own lives and their own truths. And I want to recall us to a moment of meditation and quiet. I'm going to open with a poem from Mary Oliver entitled "When I Am Among the Trees," partly because it's springtime, but partly because it's a poem about trees, but it's also a poem about finding yourself. and being true to the goodness you find in yourself and in the world. When I conclude the poem, we will enter a moment of silence. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness, I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine." May we hurry less through the world, walk slowly, and bow often. Amen. So, the Trans Affirming Collective and I have been having a lot of fun. We kind of thought of this day as a party of sorts, and we actually have party favors for you. There are people coming through, Trans Affirming Collective members coming through with stickers. And if you want to sort of a visual pledge of your commitment to our shared principles of honoring the worth and dignity of every human being and supporting the search for truth and meaning, both in big ways and on the individual scale, then I invite you to take one of these stickers and enjoy it with our good wishes. So, transgender visibility. It's quite a topic. There's a lot to it. Colin's comments did a good job of giving you a sense of how very many ways people can be transgendered or non-binary. It can sometimes be a difficult term, transgender, to define. For our purposes, we're going with the big umbrella version, where trans means someone whose sense of themselves and their gender identity doesn't sync up well with the gender identity that was assigned to them at birth. So there's also a name for people who don't have any particular problem with their assigned gender. And that's called cis, C-I-S, or cisgender, if you want to do the long version. And I thought, well, it was suggested to me by the Trans Affirming Collective folks that it might be helpful for those of us who are cisgendered to think a little bit about how we enjoy privilege around being cisgender. And that's a really good suggestion. And I thought it might be kind of difficult. I thought I'd have to do a lot of research. Turns out it wasn't really all that hard once I started paying attention and reading a few stories, some articles, some blog posts, and I have a list. It's sort of a little party game, if you will. I have a list of questions. Keep track of how often you say yes or no, okay? Do you take your children or yourself to the movies or school or the prom or sports practices or sleepovers without worrying about restrooms? Okay. Do you make interstate travel plans without checking state anti-discrimination laws along your route? Okay. Do you generally assume you will have no problem picking up prescribed medications from your pharmacy, or accessing appropriate medical care, or being treated always with respect by medical staff? Do you know what words to use to describe yourself, and do you feel safe using them? Do you feel pretty confident that a single ID is all you'll probably need in your pocket, and probably you don't even need that very often? I talked to one person who carries routinely 5 IDs, more than that. There's a whole wallet full. State IDs, government-issued IDs, insurance cards, many, 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 voter registration, social security card all the time, because they need sometimes to prove that they are who they say they are. So do you walk out of the house just with your driver's license? Do you fill out routine forms without feeling that your privacy is being invaded, and perhaps dangerously, by what we think of often as routine questions about medical history, for example? Do you take for granted that others will honor your privacy and your boundaries in casual conversation? If you said yes to most of those questions, then you might be regularly experiencing cisgender privilege. If you said no to some of those, and we all, we none of us actually feel all the time that we fit in the boxes that society wants to put us in. But if you said no some of those times, you have a point of connection, of understanding some of what some cisgender people experience. You might want, if you experience or partake of cisgender privilege, to recognize that our trans siblings routinely deal with problems and threats that many of us never even imagine. And you might want to know and be encouraged that we can start to help, sometimes in relatively easy ways. For instance, our congregation now has gender-neutral signage on our bathrooms. Prominent, clear, easy to see. This is a good thing. It's a good thing that when a visitor comes in through our social hall, one of the very first things they see is that there is a restroom for them. It is amazing to me that that is such a hard thing in so many spaces. So I encourage you to, walk through your days and think about how your privilege might be extended to others, to be more attentive to how other people don't experience this privilege, and to the small ways in which we can extend our welcome and make all the spaces in which we gather more welcoming and safer for everyone. There are, as you've been hearing through the service, lots of opportunities here in our congregation to get involved. There are also many, many places outside our walls for you to be involved. And I want to encourage you on a couple of fronts. One, consider expanding how widely and how deeply you listen to other people. And when people tell you about who they are, make the choice to believe them, instead of quizzing them on why the name change, why this pronoun. Just believe that they are telling you the way they would like to be addressed, and that calling them by the names they choose, using the pronouns that they prefer, is the best way to honor them as human beings and fellow travelers in this life. I also, if you are interested in exploring tracking legislation, for instance, the Human Rights Campaign, and locally, the Tennessee Equality Project have really great online tools. You can sign up for email lists that give you really quick ways to make an impact on the legislative process around these issues. And there's a lot of work and a lot of advocating and a lot of being mindful that needs to happen these days. There's so many bills in so many states being fast-tracked right now that actually legalize discrimination. But what I really want to do, what the Trans Affirming Collective and I plan to do today, is for us as a congregation to offer a blessing to the transgender people here in our midst this morning and elsewhere. And we are mindful that the idea of visibility is a complex one. It is dangerous sometimes to be visible, and we need to honor that and honor people's judgments about their own safety. But we'd like to offer I want to set up a blessing that we can all participate in with lots of options. And so I'm going to run through the options and then we will do them, okay? If you are under that big umbrella of trans, if you are transgender from male to female or female to male, or if you are non-binary or genderqueer, or there are many, many labels you might use, but if you're under that umbrella, if you claim space under that umbrella, we would like to offer you a blessing. And if you would like to be visible, you're invited to stand. Not just yet, I'm going to just give you all your options first, and then you can think about it. You can stand. If you'd like to come forward, you could stand here up on the platform with me, or I do want to remind you, we do record our services, so the camera is here, and I'm here. The camera is going to stay pretty focused on me, so you could be visible in the side aisles, if you like. Or you could stand where you are seated, or you might want just to stay seated, and that's great too. If you are a person who loves and lives with someone who is under that big trans umbrella, we'd like to offer you a blessing also. So you have all those same options, okay? If you would like for someone near you to offer you a reassuring touch as we do this blessing, so a hand on the shoulder or holding hands, then I invite you, wherever you decide you want to be during this blessing, to raise your hand or to hold out your hand. And I invite your neighbors then to notice those signals and join just in a very easy touch of a reassurance that we are all in this together, that we are family. And then we have a blessing. And there's a part for everybody. I will read lines, and the response to each line is, "We see you." Okay, does everyone want to practice that? We see you. You can do this. So, now is the time. If you are transgender and would like to be visible during this blessing, if you would stand, come forward if you would like to, or move into an aisle, you are invited to do that now. If you would like for your neighbors to offer a compassionate touch, an arm, a touch on the shoulder, holding hands, you could just indicate that by raising or reaching out a hand. And everyone in the sanctuary, please look around and see if there is someone near you. You might need to look behind you. And if you need to stand up to offer them that company, then please do that. Everyone go ahead and move around as you need to, okay? And of course, if you're a parent too, or somebody, a loved one, all right. So let us bless on this Transgender Day these beloveds who are among us this morning with these words. And I am drawing from the words of Alex Capitan. I'm inspired by and have added to them. We see you. We see you. You who don't feel trans enough to call yourself trans. We see you. You who owned your truth in 1942 in the only ways you had access to. We see you. You who don't know who you are, but know who you aren't. We see you. You who are 3 years old, or 13, or 33, or 54, and know exactly who you are. We see you. You who just want to blend. We see you. You who can't stand the thought of blending. We see you. You who are never perceived as you perceive yourself to be. We see you. You who always are perceived the way you perceive yourself. We see you. You who must compromise pieces of yourself in order to survive. We see you. You for whom life is transition, we see you. You who are visible for so many different reasons, and you who are not for so many different reasons, we see you. We are grateful for your courage and integrity and self-knowledge. We see you. We are enriched by your presence among us. We see you. You are holy and whole and real. We see you. Amen and blessed be. Thank you all.
So when Reverend Denise was sending out the order of service earlier this week to some of us, somebody replied and said, "Wait, are we really singing this song twice? Just want to make sure." And I love Denise's response. She said, "Some messages bear repeating." So please rise in body or in spirit. Join me for number 1053 in the teal hymnal, "How Could Anyone?"
The words to this child's extinguishing can be found at the bottom of your order of service. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. A benediction from Mary Oliver's Trees. Each of us has come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Our service is over. Let us go out into the beauty of this springtime, remembering sometimes to walk slowly and to bow more often to the beauty unfolding in every person and all the many kinds of beautiful lives we meet.